On Prime Crime tonight, an adored teacher disappears.
And this beloved person, goes missing and just vanishes off of the face of the planet.
Sinister details are revealed.
He was like, it takes over 1,200 degrees to burn human bones.
But do we really know what happened?
Romans 3:23 says, "For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God."
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jesse Weber, and welcome to Prime Crime Tonight. This is where we do a deeper dive into the most high-profile and memorable true crime cases. Tonight, the mystery surrounding a missing woman and the stunning revelations. South of Atlanta and nestled in Irwin County lies Ocilla, Georgia.
It's a very small community. Everybody literally knows everybody else.
A quiet city known for its farming and sweet potato festival would be rocked by a chilling development.
October 2005 was the beginning of one of the most painful journeys that I think any family could ever be faced with.
On October 24, 2005, former beauty queen and history teacher Tara Grinstead eerily doesn't show up to work at Irwin County High School. She was last seen at a cookout in her neighborhood 2 days earlier and is believed to have driven home at around 11 p.m.
I mean, can you imagine living in a small town and this beloved person, goes missing and just vanishes off of the face of the planet?
The Georgia Bureau of Investigation would launch a massive probe looking into various theories from suicide to possible involvement by ex-boyfriends like Army Ranger Marcus Harper, who had a difficult relationship with Tara. But in the end, alibis and a lack of evidence would dry up leads, and the case would go on for years. Then in 2016, something happened.
Around 6 months ago, I was surfing the web. I was looking for cold cases and other unsolved mysteries.
Atlanta filmmaker Payne Lindsay launches the Up and Vanished podcast, focusing on Tara's disappearance, which brings new eyes and attention to the story.
I think that the podcast really did stir things up again. The case was cold when I got involved with it, and the podcast basically caused everyone in the town to start talking again.
In 2017, breaking news. Police arrest Ryan Duke and Bo Dukes. The two are not related, but they're close.
Bo and Ryan were high school friends, and they both had been students at Irwin County High School, where Tara Grinstead had been a teacher. In fact, may have even been in her classes.
All right, now it's time to look carefully at the evidence against both these men. And as we go through it, let's ask, what is the real story here? Before the suspects are apprehended in 2017, let's go back to 2016, when John McCullough, a former Army buddy of Bo Dukes, reaches out to investigators about a conversation he had with Dukes in 2006, something that until this time he seemingly disregarded as Dukes just being drunk at the time. A recorded call between McCullough and GBI agent Jason Shadell is released to the public.
He's like, "Do you remember, that sign that was in town?" And I was like, "Yeah." It's like the one that I'd asked him about, because I was like, "Man, that's a pretty lady." I was like, "That's kind of shitty." Because I noticed, that it said, "Hey, missing person," all this other stuff, and, he was like, "Well, I know what happened to her."
In this shocking twist, Dukes claimed his friend murdered Tara, and then he helped to clean up the evidence by burning her body on his family's pecan orchard.
He was like, it takes over 1,200 degrees to burn human bones. And he said that a couple of times, prior to whenever he's sitting there, telling me this story, and I never paid no mind. I didn't know what the hell he was talking about, Right.
After Agent Shadell speaks to McCullough, he then questions Bo Dukes about this.
I mean, he was pretty animate that, you had made some comments regarding, like, burning a body, and, that's, now you understand why I have to talk to you, it's just one of those things that...
No. No. I remember it was in the news big and all, but no.
Well, you know, I mean, but we have to ask the question.
I understand.
Yeah, you know. So you didn't help anybody, you know, burn her body, get rid of her, or any of that good stuff?
No.
And it's that interview that would result in Duke's arrest. Why? Fast forward to February 2017. Duke sits down with Shadell and admits he was holding something back. Something big.
Told me that he had killed Terry Grinstead. I thought he was... I didn't believe him. I thought it was not. I told him, you know, take me home, let me go to sleep.
Bo claimed that his friend Ryan Duke confessed to murdering Tara and left her body on Bo's family's pecan orchard. He then agrees to go to the site to check this out.
And he showed me where her body was. And freaked out, got up. I asked him what the hell had happened. He told me that he had gone to her house that night, used a credit card to get him through the front door lock, and strangled her into bed. And then brought her body to the orchard.
Strangulation is one of the most intimate methodologies for taking another's life, because it is very intimate. You have to get within that close space.
For such a violent killing, though, Dukes describes an unusual set of injuries on Tara.
Can you describe it for me?
Almost like bruising, I guess. Not extremely noticeable, but they're there.
Were there like lines or anything like really distinct? Okay.
You just place this person on a solid surface like the floor or even on the bed, you gain the upper hand in this event and you choke her out. It's not going to require a tremendous amount of pressure in order to facilitate this. You might not even need to knock her about at all. First off, she's in total shock.
Dukes then acknowledges in horrific detail how he did in fact burn Tara's corpse.
And moved her body into the wood area. There was a bunch of wood and burned it. So over a period of like 2 days.
This would be confirmed by the GBI when they excavated the burn site and found charred remains of human bone.
I had to have used an accelerant like a gasoline or some type of petroleum product just to get it started. But once that started, they have to be prepped with wood on place to fuel the fire. And this is a constant, not just supplying the fuel, but stoking the fire.
That's not all. Authorities recovered a latex glove outside Tara's home. Testing identified both Tara and Ryan Duke's DNA on the glove. Strangely, though, according to Bo's interview, this doesn't make sense.
I asked him about the gloves. He told me that he didn't use gloves. And so, yeah.
Did y'all ever go back by the house?
No.
I think that it's scientifically implausible that Duke's DNA and Tara's DNA just miraculously winds up on the glove. You have to have an individual wearing this glove. They have to have had contact with both individuals. That's how it gets deposited there.
Ultimately, prosecutors indicted Ryan for Tara's murder, and Bo was charged in connection with lying to investigators in 2016 and helping to dispose of evidence. A big issue, though, is whether these two could have been arrested earlier, especially since it's been alleged these men bragged about what they did at a party weeks after Tara vanished. And Dukes admitted he told other people over the years, including his ex-girlfriend, Brooke Sheridan, who tipped off the police in 2017.
We're talking about an area that is very, very sparsely populated. So it leaves me, and I hate the Monday morning quarterback, but it leaves me to ask the question, was everything pursued that could have been pursued at that moment in time?
The GBI had said Bo and Ryan's names never came up before, but evidence suggests that's not true.
It was told to me that years ago, just a few weeks after she went missing, local law enforcement went out there based on a tip that they heard that Ryan Duke and Bo Dukes had murdered Tara. They went and searched out in this pecan orchard, and they were turned away. And that information was then given to the GBI. So in fact, these guys' names were on their radar for this long. And it makes you wonder, one, why didn't they continue investigating this? And two, what turned them away in the first place?
Misstatement by the GBI, or if it was just they weren't aware of what was in their own case file. It's probably that. They probably just didn't realize that they had these names until they went back and looked at their file. But it was a big misstep.
Whatever may be the case, the reality is we're now left with Duke's account. And while physical evidence corroborates certain elements of the story, some argue something feels off. Why did he agree to say these things to law enforcement? Why would Ryan do this? And maybe someone was hiding something.
But I do think that Ryan Duke and Bo Dukes are both involved in her murder. But I do think that maybe Bo Dukes is more involved than he's saying he is.
When we come back, we're going to focus on the question that people continually debate. Who exactly is the killer?
This is just a simple question, but why didn't you tell me then what you're telling me now? But no bruising like you punched her or anything, just strangled her?
No, it didn't look like that. I mean, everything looks sort of weird. I mean, I've seen dead bodies since then.
Tara Grinstead disappeared suddenly in 2005, and it would take over 10 years for suspects Ryan Duke and Bo Dukes to be caught. But if you think this is an open and shut case, think again. Bo Dukes told investigators that his friend Ryan Duke strangled Tara to death, he assisted in burning the body, and then lied about it to authorities. But a closer look at the case raises doubts as to who actually killed Tara. Let's start with Ryan Duke's motive.
And he never told you why he did it? I mean,
No, he never.
why her?
Never said why or
I mean, even to this day, he's never disclosed why?
no.
That brings us to Ryan Duke himself, who allegedly confessed to police as well. According to reports, he claims he broke into Tara's house to steal money for drugs and then killed her when she caught him in the act. That narrative raises suspicions too.
I've never bought the idea that this was a garden variety burglary gone bad, where somebody just walks in for purposes of committing some kind of a theft. You know, I used to be a police officer in that town, and it's a really, really small place. And I've seen that house, and I know what was in it, and there was nothing of value. There would be nothing served for anyone to burglarize that house.
There's no signs of forced entry. So as an investigator, one of the things that you begin to do and kind of process through all this thing is, well, if this is a burglary, wouldn't there be some evidence that someone tried to gain access to an area in which that something was denying them, some kind of physical impediment like a lock or something such as this, or a bar? That doesn't exist here.
There's also the matter of what Dukes noticed about Tara when he saw her body.
When he takes you to this orchard, and is the body covered up with anything? Is it clothed?
No, it was not clothed at all, and it wasn't covered up with anything. It was laying face up in some knee-high grass.
Yet according to Dukes, Ryan says he didn't sexually assault the former beauty queen.
There was some kind of intimate understanding between the two people. I can't speak to Tara's personal habits of walking around the home, but it does seem odd. Why else would you have a body that is totally nude? What else would be the motivation, unless it was revenge for something? There seems to be potentially an underlying sexual current here, that something did in fact occur. The problem with that, Jesse, is that that's very difficult to prove.
Maybe there's not a clear reason for why Duke would murder Tara, because he didn't do it. His attorneys argue that he was on drugs and provided a false confession to police.
Someone can believe that they need to tell law enforcement what law enforcement wants to hear. They might believe that it's in their best interest to frame things in a certain way. There's all sorts of reasons why people really do falsely confess to a crime.
Although Duke's lawyers concede he helped to cover up the crime, they say he's not the killer, and it's been alleged that he's scared of Bo.
He told me that he was scared of Bo, of what Bo would have done if he would have come forward, but other than that, no.
Some argue it's a bit strange that Bo would help Ryan dispose of human remains instead of calling the police. Bo seems to claim he had no choice once Ryan showed him Tara's body on his family's property.
So you immediately see this and you're like, what in the hell did you do?
Yeah, and why the did you do it here on my family's pig orchard? I mean,
what did he say?
Help me.
It's even odd that Bo decided to admit to law enforcement about what he did. On one hand, maybe he had a guilty conscience.
I mean, it's stuff you can't even tell a therapist, you know? It's like, you have issues and you want to talk to somebody and that you can't tell them this. I mean, it's fucking...
Because you've been wanting to talk about this for a long time.
Yeah.
Then again, Agent Shadell asked him why he didn't just tell the truth in the 2016 interview.
Or any of that good stuff.
No. Here a long time. And like I said, I didn't think it was time yet.
That's what leads to the idea that Bo Dukes may not be as honest as he claims. After all, it's arguably very convenient that Bo admits to only getting involved after Tara's death.
It sort of gives the appearance of someone who is trying to maybe minimize their own conduct and throw someone else under the bus so that they can avoid the mandatory life sentence that goes along with murder. So the idea is that you can confess to a piece of it because maybe law enforcement knows that you were a participant, but if you can say, okay, I was there, but I really wasn't that much involved, you can maybe sort of spin your version of events in a way that's helpful.
The theory that Bo Dukes is the real killer could be supported by a story that Payne Lindsay was told by an unnamed source, in which he shared on Up and Vanished.
Years ago, his brother picked up what he thought was Ryan Duke from a bar in Ocilla, and this man told him that one time he blacked out and he thought that he killed somebody. And something about that story just rings true to me. What if he thought that he did kill Tara Grinstead, but he doesn't even really remember? What if these guys were messed up that night?
We know that false memories occur. We know that people can be subject to the power of suggestion. You can take a person and tell them that they did something and actually get them to believe it. So there are a lot of people who think that that might be the case here. A lot of people believe that, well, maybe the roles are reversed. Okay, maybe it's Bo Dukes who committed this crime and suggested to Ryan that's how it happened.
Here's what we do know. Bo Dukes went to trial in Wilcox County and was convicted of lying to authorities, concealing Tara's death, and helping to prevent Ryan's arrest. After a heart-wrenching impact statement from Tara's stepmother,
He did nothing. He just went on living his life, not caring about the pain he had caused to others. He knew she was never coming back. He could have at least told us that, but he didn't.
he himself spoke out in court.
To the Tara Grinstead family, I'm truly sorry. Your long suffering has been unimaginable. My actions were cowardly, callous, and cruel. I was more interested in self-pity and self-preservation than doing the right thing for Tara and for you. I pray for your forgiveness.
But the judge wasn't having any of it.
Romans 3:23 says, "For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God." We all have. But that would have been the time to come forward.
Dukes was sentenced to 25 years in prison. At the time of this recording, Dukes faces a separate trial in Ben Hill County related to the burning of Tara's body. Ryan Duke's murder trial has been delayed as he now appeals to Georgia's Supreme Court, asking for the state to pay for defense experts.
There's a big fight over money. The defense wants to hire expert witnesses because if you're going to convince a jury that your client's confession was a false confession, you've got to be able to back that up. He's in no hurry. He says, look, I'm guilty. I've told him I've committed at least these other crimes. I'm going to have to do a lot of prison time anyway. So I may as well just stay here in the local jail, keep my mouth shut, not press for a speedy trial, because guess what happens over time? Evidence gets stale, witnesses disappear. It's much harder to try a case years and years and years after an arrest.
And there's even uncertainty if we see any trial.
Whether any of these cases ever come to trial is questionable in my view at this point, because our court system is so backed up. And, in the case of Bo Dukes, for example, he's going to be in prison already for a very long time.
As these legal proceedings continue, what we will ask is who killed Tara Grinstead?
I can't say from anything that I've read, that I've learned, that sources have told me about, I can't say definitively that Bo is not the killer. I think that it's very plausible that he might be.
At the end of the day, with this case, the science is going to tell, and you have to ask this question: what is the source of the DNA? And from an investigative standpoint, who had the biggest motivation?
And I think it's going to be, one person's word versus the other person's word. And that could get very interesting, I think.
A mystery since 2005 has started to unravel. And while we seem to know more details about what happened, we still have questions that we may never know the answers to. That's all we have for you on Prime Crime Tonight. Give us your comments on the Tara Grinstead case on Twitter and Facebook with the hashtag PrimeCrimeTonight. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, be safe.